So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Marie for this talk. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming, especially on a day today. I was caught up in the tube as well. Everything was closed off and I didn't know how to get here, so I was like, but you all made it, so we really appreciate you taking the time to come here and find out what we do. Energy is not such an easy thing to talk about. We all might have ideas about what energy is, but because it's invisible, it's something you cannot touch, you cannot see, you cannot hear. Some people, of course, can see energy, but different types. There are so many different types of energy. So even when a person says, I can see energy, they might be seeing a particular spectrum of energy. Key energy is a very particular type of energy. You're probably more familiar with the word qi. The Chinese, of course, call it qi, and the Koreans and the Japanese call it ki, which is spelled like so. Ki is a very, very particular type of energy. It's defined in a very clear way. And again, but then again, because so much of this terminology comes from the East, some of the things you're going to be familiar with, other things you're not going to be so familiar with, but I think this one you're more or less familiar with. So Ki is a very particular type of energy. Now there are so many different types of energy in the universe. There is microwaves, there is infrareds, there is cosmic rays, there is even all this stuff we're subjected to. We've got this aircon. This aircon is connected to a power point, so we're part of this whole electricity grid which supplies all our energy needs, mostly coming from fossil fuels, unfortunately. So we can see we cannot live in a world without energy. Nothing could function without energy. But what about the human body? The human body needs just as much energy as your car, as the electricity you've got in your house, as your air cons, as your stove where you cook your foods. Any appliance that needs energy, I can tell you the human body needs even more. In fact, I'm going to tell you something that's probably going to amaze you. Per cubic meter, the human body is giving off more heat than the sun. Yes, that boggles the mind when you think about it. Per cubic meter. Now, so you can see, especially on planet Earth, life could not exist without the energy from the sun. The sun is the main source of energy on planet Earth, but it doesn't end there. During the day, we get energy from the sun to heat up the planet. At night, we get energy from the moon to cool it down. If you only had the sun, all life on planet Earth would be burned to death. If you only had the moon, all life would be frozen to death. So what do you need? You need both. You know what these are? This is the negative polarity, this is the positive polarity. Without these two polarities, nothing can exist. Life cannot exist. This thing has to have a positive pole and a negative pole for electricity to come through. Everything has to have, your battery in your car has to have a positive pole, a negative pole. The human body is identical. You must have these two energies. But guess what happens when those two energies are out of balance? Which happens to, I would say, today, at this point in time, in the 21st century, I can say 100% of people. These two energies are out of balance. Either you have too much of this, or you've got too much of that. Guess what happens? You've got too much of this. And you've got too much, this is heat. This is the hot energy. You're going to have heart problems, high blood pressure, everything to do with diseases of fast metabolism, when you've got too much heat in your body. And emotions, when you get angry for no reason, you've got too much heat in your body. Likewise, this one's the cold energy. You've got too much cold energy in your body, you're more prone to metabolic illnesses, things like cancer, arthritis. There's a number of diseases that will happen when you've got too much of this. So essentially what we are doing is we are restoring the body's balance of these two energies. You have to restore these two balance, these two energies. And guess what happens when you've got these two energies in the right proportion? Your body starts to make ki. And you know what ki is? Ki is the body's battery. It's what moves. It's, you know, you can measure heartbeat, you can measure blood pressure, you can measure all kinds of things, but it's still a fundamental question, which is what makes your heart beat? Ki. What makes your lungs breathe in and out? Ki. Not the air. The air is just the fuel that you're taking to your body. What makes your body digest and break down and assimilate foods? Ki. Food, water, and air comes from nature, planet Earth. But ki is different. Ki comes from actually ki is made at conception. When father and mother come together, father is the positive polarity, mother is the negative polarity. When those two polarities meet at conception, it makes ki. And that's the ki you're going to have for the rest of your life. That's the ki. You don't get any more ki apart from the time of conception. But there is a but to that, which I'm coming to in a moment. So if you don't do anything about it, you may be born with a very small amount of ki, depending what happened at that moment of conception. In fact, it's very interesting these days. We're concerned about date of birth, you know, when we celebrate our birthdays and so on, and you have astrological charts based on our birthdays, but you know what the most important time in your life is? Conception. Everything is decided at conception. So essentially at that moment of conception, depending on the energy that your father and your mother had, depending on the love between them, depending on the bond between them, depending on so many circumstances, you can be born with a huge amount of ki. And these are the people who are kind of healthy no matter what they do. They're just healthy. And then you've got those ones that, depending on all kinds of circumstances, they're born with a very small amount of ki, and from a very early age, even as children, they already have health problems, they're weak, they're not quite vital and vibrant and so on. So that's to do with the amount of ki given to you at conception. Now, if you don't do anything about it, you can say, well, that's the luck of the draw. No. What the Taoist masters discovered many thousands of years ago, and that's the origin, the foundation to this method, goes back to Taoism. What they found out many thousands of years ago is that it's possible to replenish your body with ki apart from the time of conception. And in fact, some of them were so good that they became known as immortals. Is anybody here familiar with the concept of Taoist immortals? Great. So the Taoist immortals, there are not that many. There is only a handful. In fact, as far as I know, there are about 7, but maybe a bit more, a bit less. The Chinese have kept meticulous records of the Taoist immortals. And in fact, I was reading about this guy only not so long ago. He was born in the 1700s, 17 something or other, and he died in 1948, if I remember correctly. He was well over 250 years at the time of death. But there are other Taoist immortals that were known to have lived 500 years or so. Now, we think this is mythology. No, it's not. The Taoist method of energy regeneration, it's probably the most powerful, the deepest method that there is. Anybody who is working with energy, if you haven't really got to the Taoist method of energy regeneration, you're kind of more or less playing with other types of energy. So what the Taoist masters found out is this: essentially, human body, we exist between the universe and the earth. Now, there is this energy coming from the universe which comes in from the top of the head. And there is a major energy center right here. I'm not talking about chakras, by the way. There's a major energy center which is right on top of the pineal gland. Very, very important. This energy center regulates all the hormonal functions in the body. It's right on top of the pineal gland. And then this energy comes down to the middle of the chest. There's another very important energy center right there, right on top of the thymus gland. So people with problem with thyroid and all kinds of chest problems and so on, usually this energy center here is quite closed. And then this energy runs down to another very important energy center which is just below the navel, a couple of inches below the navel. This regulates all the digestive, reproductive functions. This one is mostly the cardiovascular functions. Now, then we have the energy coming from the earth, which comes in through the soles of our feet. So it comes all the way up, and these two energies coming from the universe and the earth, they meet at this point here. So we say this is the center of energy in the body, which you call, the Japanese call hara, the Chinese call the dantian. Now, this energy center here, now from here, you have hundreds and hundreds of energy channels, and I mean hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of energy channels running right through your body. Now, guess what these two energies are? The energy coming from the universe is the hot yang energy. The energy coming from the earth is the yin minus energy. Now, guess what happened? You know what I'm getting here? Guess what happens? If all these energy channels in your body are fully opened, and if you have these two energies coming in unobstructed from the universe and the earth, guess what's going to happen? Your body is going to start making ki apart from the time of conception. This is what the Taoist masters discovered many, many thousands of years ago. And they developed a method to keep these energy channels open. So your body is always receiving the energy from the universe and the earth. Your body is always making ki. But guess what happened with 99.99999% of people? Got blockages along the energy channels. Many, many blockages. Many, many blockages along the energy channels. So what then? Even though the universe is giving you this enormous amount of energy, even though the earth is giving you this enormous amount of energy, your body cannot circulate energy because all the energy channels are blocked. And therefore, your capacity to make ki is less, especially as you're getting older, less. So you're left with just the ki that you were born with. Now, if you're lucky enough to have been born with a lot of ki, great. If you are one of those, like me, who was born with very little ki, then you have to do a lot about it. And I'm glad I discovered this 20 years ago. I've been doing this work for 20 years now. And as Anne said, I used to work as a scientist. I used to work in a laboratory in research. And I used to work with a lot of very, very toxic chemicals, carcinogenic chemicals, actually. So my health broke down quite badly. For about 7 or 8 years, I was totally incapacitated. Couldn't work, couldn't do anything. And of course, during that time, you start to explore all kinds of things. And I'm sure if I mention what I've done, most of you that have done it too. You do all kinds of, you do all the medical stuff, you know, you kind of don't get lots of results, and you start going further and further afield, until at some point I discovered about the ki method. I went to Korea. I stayed in Korea for almost 9 years, learning about this method. And essentially my point of view is this. Science is very good at what it does, and we could not live in this world without science. But science is restricted to the material world. That's why these days a lot of scientists refer to it as scientific materialism. They don't even call it science anymore. They call it scientific materialism, to make it clear that science is about the world of matter. It understands the world of matter really, really well. But knowing what matter is made of, it does not tell you what it's made for and why. In other words, why are we here? What is the purpose of our lives? Science cannot answer these questions. These questions are spiritual questions, which the East has exceeded at. One of the things that I found so amazing when I lived in the East for so many years, I went there with this totally materialistic view of the world. I was a real scientist, very rational, very logical about everything. I know what this stuff is made of. This stuff is made of atoms. I understand atoms very well, and there's nothing going to tell me that's going to change my mind about it. Everything I needed to know was contained within the laws of physics, chemistry, mathematics. Then I arrived there in Korea, and this totally different culture, which at first, of course, I cannot describe how painful it was, because almost everything I believed in was being challenged. Every moment of the day I was being challenged in my core beliefs. And what I've come to realize is that they have such an understanding of life, they have such a different view of life that I had never come across before. And of course I have to describe that as a more spiritual view of life. I'm not talking about religious view of life. You need to understand there is a difference between using the word spiritual and using the word religious. Religions are systems created by human beings to serve a certain purpose. A spiritual understanding of life to me is this. This is a spiritual understanding of life. This tells you not only what life is made of, but it also tells what is made for and why. As you go on and on and on through this method, and as you start to get really unblocked, you start to get inspirations, ideas. A lot of your beliefs will be challenged, of course, but at the same time you start to discover things about yourself that you had never seen before. There is an opening, there is an awareness of life and the world around you, and our connection with all of life that can only be explained in spiritual terms. I remember Wittgenstein, Ludwig Wittgenstein, the Austrian philosopher. I really like his work. He once said, even when all the scientific questions have been answered, the problems of life will remain untouched. And what he means by that, of course, is you can solve so many problems with science, but am I a happy person? Am I fulfilled? Am I living the purpose of my life? Why am I here? Do I understand these other human beings that I share the world with? Do I understand the life of an insect? Do I understand the life of a plant? Do I really understand? So essentially what happened is, when I was, the longer I stayed there in Korea, the more I start to see things around me as they all are part of me. Like there was no separation between myself and even the ants walking on the suddenly start to look at the ants in a completely different way. For me, ants before are just something that you can step on, it doesn't really matter. And suddenly I found myself zigzagging around the ants, avoiding to step on them. That's a life. My life is just as valuable as that. And until we grow this understanding, how can we solve our problems? How can we solve the problems of this body, this life, this planet Earth where we live in? We have massive problems to deal with at the moment. Massive environmental problems, massive social problems. And until you find this connection between you, the universe, and the Earth, and you know what happens when you're doing this training? As these energy channels start to open up, as you start to free up this flow of energy, the connection between you and the universe and the Earth become real, not theoretical, not a book that you read about. We can all write books about it, but you actually feel it very deep inside you. Do you feel this connection with the universe, the earth, and all of life? Well, from my experience, I don't know about you, but from my experience, I didn't. And I spent most of my life reading books. This is a real experience. This is something that you have to actually feel it. And this is something that you have to do it yourself. Nobody can do it for you. Which is the other thing that the East, I think, is good at. They are so good at developing very practical methods. They're very practical. That is why the Tai Chi and the yoga and the shiatsu and the acupuncture and the martial arts and all this stuff comes from the East. You think about it for a moment. What actually comes from the West? Apart from aerobic exercise. To tone your muscles. So you see, the East has taken, the West has taken a very material, very logical, very rational approach to life, and the East has taken a spiritual, a softer understanding. What was amazed when I was there, they're such communal societies, which for me, being such a Western individualist, was a real challenge. I suddenly have to live in this community of people where I didn't really matter that much. My individual self took quite a battering. But you know what it does? What it does, it suddenly starts to open up your mind to, wow, I share this world with all these people. I share this world with all of life. And this is something that happens through a very practical method. You actually have to do it. Do it. Not understand it in your head. We all understand it in our heads. That's not such a difficult thing to do. But you actually feel that, feel this connection. And this training, in some very strange way, is doing that. Do you know, I talked about these three energy centers here. These three energy centers, I can talk about their physiological functions. This one controls all the hormonal functions. This one controls the vascular functions. This one controls the digestive, reproductive functions. But you know also what they are? This is the material sense. This is like, let's say, this is body. But in a metaphysical sense, you know what they are? This is the energy center of the spirit. This is the energy center of the mind. This is the energy center of the body, which controls all the body functions. So essentially what is happening here, I don't know how well you can understand this. It's not such an easy thing to understand, but it will take too long to go into it. Essentially what happens is this. Energy comes from the universe first through the stop energy center, which opens that light of the spirit, which is essentially the pineal gland that controls that. As it goes down, it starts to open up the mind. And that's when you start to have realizations about yourself, realizations about other people. For me, these days, I only need to look at a photo, and I can already read that person's mind. I just need a photo, and I can see that person's mind. Because once this energy center here is open, you realize that this mind is not just your mind. It's not an individual mind. It's a collective mind, which Carl Jung, of course, talked a lot about. It's a collective mind. Through this mind, you can understand the mind of an insect. You can understand the mind of a plant, because it's not about the self. It's about this universal mind. And this one here, this one actually controls all the body functions. Everything that the body needs to do, make new cells, make more immune cells, make blood cells, and make proteins, all this is actually controlled by this low energy center here. So essentially what happens is, once you open these energy blockages along the energy channels, which is what you're going to do today, this energy coming from the universe lights up the light of spirit, opens up the mind, regenerates so the body functions, and again the energy coming from the earth again. So these two energies are supporting body, mind, and spirit. You know, we have these expos, you know, we call body, mind. I'm sure some of you would have been to the MBS. And you have all these expos, you call body, mind, and spirit. But then you go there, it's pretty much just merchandise. You know, you're just selling products, you're just buying stuff. You know, you go to one of those places and you ask, okay, what you're going to do for me, for the spirit? I've come here for this. What can you do for me? Or I've come here for this. What can you do for me? Or even this one. My body's been sick for 10, 15 years. What can you do for me? This is what you need to discover yourself. You will discover what you have to do for this one and this one and this one when you have made this connection, when this openness, when this energy is flowing. Then you're going to discover what that is and what you need to do for that and what this one is and what this one is. And the body does recover. I'm 60 years old. I was supposed to have died, according to the doctors, quite a long time ago. And I'm still here. So you see, this regenerates the body. This makes the mind brighter and clear, so you know what you need to do in your life. And this one, by the time we die, by the time we leave this earth, this hopefully should be very bright. Hopefully the light of this should be very bright and clear.
Unless they give you morphine.
So essentially, this is what we're going to be talking about. I cannot cover this on this talk today because this is a huge topic. That's why we're going to have the family healing workshop in a few weeks' time, which is all about this. What happens when you live this life? We're not material beings. We are not. And even if you want to go the scientific way, if you're still thinking that we are just matter, which is fine, so even if you need to go the scientific way, okay, let's go back to that equation. This is what makes the material world. All the material world is made of atoms. Now what is this? This is the positive polarity and this is the negative polarity. So you cannot have an atom without those two. This is essentially what makes everything that we see around us. But you see, this is already the world of matter. You already work in the material world here. Now, what science hasn't got to yet is this. Lots of science have, but some still not. Is that this creates this. This creates this. This creates this. So we cannot have this or this or this without this or this or this. So science is working here in the world of matter. And we are working here in the world of energy. Energy makes matter. Now, if you wanted to change matter, you have to change energy. And that is the limitation of so much of medical science, that they are trying to change matter. It is not easy. What they do at best is to eliminate the symptoms of the disease. And that, of course, it can be done. But eliminating the symptoms of the disease is not really healing. When we talk about healing, the definition of healing is the natural process by which the body repairs itself. But in order to do that, you have to have the raw materials that the body needs to repair itself. And that is the most fundamental raw material. In fact, for those who like computers, you can describe key as the software that programs life. And we and all the living beings are the hardware. This is the software. And what happens with the hardware without the software? It doesn't work. And you have to have the right software. So Ki is a very particular type of energy. And what you're going to learn in the Ki class and the Ki treatment is how to bring this energy into your body, how to open these energy channels. How do you open energy channels? Energy channels are not visible. In fact, there is nothing. I remember having a discussion a few years ago with this doctor who actually gives acupuncture treatment. And the moment I said, oh, I do something similar, except that instead of using needles, we're using sound, to open the energy channels. And he said, what energy channels? And I was like, I was really taken aback. I said, but you give acupuncture treatment. Yeah, but so there's no such thing as energy channels. I said, but how can you give an acupuncture treatment without the energy channels? And he goes, no, this doesn't exist. It just works through the nervous system. We are just stimulating the nervous system. The nervous system. Well, acupuncture, as you know, it started in China some 2,500 years ago. So 2,500 years ago, people, they had a sensitivity, they had an ability to see stuff that we cannot see anymore. And they could feel things we cannot. Like first, they could touch your body and they could feel the energy circulating through your body. And they knew exactly what the energy channels are. That's why they made the acupuncture chart. And they're very clear. Those energy channels are so clear. And these energy channels connect with all the main organs in the body. So when there's a blockage of energy there, the energy cannot flow properly to the organ, whether it's a liver, a heart, a stomach, a kidneys, whatever it is, the energy is not flowing through. And so what they discovered is that by stimulating the energy channel, in fact, they used to do the bamboo. They used to get the bamboo. They sharpened the bamboo, so made it so sharp, and they would stick there, and they could see, wow, that would stimulate the flow of energy. That's how acupuncture started. But long before that, when there were no needles, when there were no bamboo stuff, they were using sound. That is why this method goes back some 5,000, 6,000 years, much older than acupuncture. But you see, what we need to understand is that human beings, the abilities of human beings have changed a lot over thousands of years. Thousands and thousands of years ago, we're not exposed to all this artificial light, to all this artificial sound, to all the bombardment of electromagnetic fields that we're exposed to mobile phones and everything else. We could perceive nature, we could feel nature in a way that we cannot anymore. We could see things, we could see light around people's bodies. You know, when you look at religious paintings and they study the halo around people's heads, this is the light that people could see. The Australian Aborigines, when they put their hand on a rock and they could see all the energy coming out of their hands, and so they made all the rock paintings with their hands. There are literally sparks of energy coming out. This is all stuff that ancient people had. We lost all those abilities. But because we have lost them, it doesn't mean that those things have suddenly become untrue. And because we have modern science, it doesn't mean that the stuff people knew thousands of years ago has suddenly become untrue. No, not at all. But this is pretty much what we have done. We tend to think that we are evolving like this. Of course, this doesn't exist in nature. But somehow we are thinking that if this is evolution and this is time, we seem to think that we're evolving with time. In fact, that does not happen at all. Evolution, as many people have already figured out, is more like this. We have huge peaks, we have troughs. We have peaks, we have troughs. We have peaks, we have troughs. And life comes and goes according to this. This is extinction. This is new life. This is extinction. This is new life. In fact, this is... So, the whole of life revolves, and you know what key energy is? If I was going to draw you a picture of key energy. This is key energy. And you're going to recognize this as, you still remember your high school maths, the sine and cosine curve. This is plus, this is minus. And all of life is a balance of these two energies. And incidentally, you know this symbol of yin and yang, where it comes from? From this. This is when energy becomes matter. Once you contain energy within matter, then you can, but again, it's the same polarities. Then you can see, oh, okay, matter has got these two polarities, but the energy itself is this ever-going, never-ending, never-ending. Energy never, ever, this is the most fundamental law of science, the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can never be created nor destroyed. It's endless. Matter, yes, matter has got a finite lifespan. Energy never. So this continuous polarization of energy creates all matter, all life in this world. And that's never, ever going to end. But species come and go. In fact, 99.9% of species have already become extinct. So it is very important at this point in time to understand what life is made of, what we are made of, and follow the laws of nature. We have to follow the laws of nature. We have to follow this system of balance, these two polarities of yin and yang, in order to bring health to your body and harmony to your life. This is a system which follows the laws of nature. Now, I was just going to mention about energy channels, opening energy channels. It's not easy to open energy channels. As I said before, energy channels are not material. If it's something material, you can take something material into your body, but there's nothing you can take into your body that's going to open energy channels. But there is something, vibration, sound, a very particular sound vibration, not any sound. With a very particular sound vibration, that's the sound we make when you give your treatment. Through that sound vibration, we can get right through this solid physical body into your energy channels and open those energy channels. Once these energy channels are open, then you can do the movements to move energy around your body. Guess what happens when you're doing movements when the energy channels are all blocked? You're not going to get a lot of result. I did it for too many years, I know. So the key is to open the energy channels. Once these energy channels are open, then you can do the movements to carry the energy along the energy channels. And the movements we use here, you're going to see at the back wall there, we have all kinds of photos there about the movements that we do. You can look at it later, after we finish. Today we're going to show you some of the movements. They are very targeted, they are very particular movements that are carrying energy to your kidneys, to your liver, to your heart, to your lungs. They are very targeted movements. Once the energy channels are open, then you can do the movements. And then, of course, there's the meditation. Meditation is more the mind part, you know. Then is working our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings. Because let's talk a little bit about energy blockages. What causes energy blockages? Can you guess? Our emotions, our thinking, our feelings. As well, of course, the environmental stuff. Pollution, eating stuff that doesn't agree with your body, you're going to get a blockage in your stomach. So there is the environmental causes, but most blockages, from my experience, actually are emotional. And then there are the inherited energy blockages. That's the tough one. This is what's coming down in our families. Remember what I said to you, the most important time in our life is the time of conception. The state of body and mind our parents were when they made us. That is our energy system. But our parents were made by their parents, and their parents before them, and their parents before them. So essentially we are carrying the history of all our ancestors in us, in our body and mind and spirit. Whatever happened to them we are carrying that in our system, in our energy system. And a lot of those blockages, like when I touch a person's body, I can tell straight away when there's an inherited blockage. And I usually tell the person, I can't open it. Through treatment, I can't open it. We cannot open. The only blocked environmental and emotional blockages we can open through the treatment. Inherited blockages we cannot. This is why we have this program, the family healing program, specifically to open inherited energy blockages. Once you open the inherited energy blockages, then boy, you're flying. Sadly, that was my experience. I was very, very ill when I came to this. And I got the treatment. I felt, wow, this is something new. I haven't experienced this before. It felt quite good afterwards. Then I came, joined the training, doing the treatment, doing the movements. Oh yeah, I'm feeling better. But still, it's like going from here to there, and then coming down again, and going up again, and coming down again. So it was more or less like that. When they talked to me about the family healing, then that kind of like the penny dropped, because I know about my family's history, and it's not a good one. And when I realized that there was a solution, when I really figured out there is a solution to this, that I can actually get to the root of the problem, the root of my physical and emotional problems, even our emotions, even stuff that we think is ours, is actually inherited. A lot of it is inherited. Sure, we've got a lot of our own stuff as well, but the point being, if you have inherited that particular pattern, your mind is going to keep creating that. So, and until you get to the root of the problem, again, I went to years and years of psychoanalysis. It was great fun, of course, paying somebody to listen to you. I mean, that's great, I don't have a problem with that. Better than dump it on your friends. But essentially, I didn't go very far. So I'm seeing that, and by golly, I had some pretty good therapists as well. You're really good ones, and they work really hard on me. But we didn't get very far. And so I could see there was a pattern in my mind that I couldn't shift. No matter what I did, I couldn't shift. No herbs, no potions, no psychoanalysis, nothing could shift. And when I realized that so many people in my family had that same mental pattern, and then I thought, okay, it's not totally my stuff, is it? As well as all the physical illnesses that came from that particular mental pattern. And when I was really figured out that, wow, there's something that can be done with energy, with key energy, because one thing you need to understand about key energy, it does not differentiate between body, mind, and spirit. Whatever problem you have, whether it's a physical problem, a mental problem, a spiritual problem, the energy will shift with a lot of your cooperation. So once I cleared the roots of the problem, which was coming down my family, in fact, I have inherited a gene that the doctors told me I was going to die from that. So the energy, what you need to understand about energy is that energy is, the best way to describe energy is information. Once you give your body the right information, your body and mind will do the work. It will adjust. It will do what it has to do. And you know what? It's so different for each one of you. Some people can get what they want very, very fast. Other people take a very long time. Even people with the same health problems. One person can get rid of it very quickly. Another one can take a very long time. We don't know. That's how it is with work with energy. I think the main thing you need to work with energy is you need patience, you need trust, and you have to really put in the work. That way, I think you'll get whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And you all have different things that you want to get. Some people are more physical, some people are more mental, some people, all kinds of things. But I think once you make this connection with the universe and the earth, and once this energy is flowing through you, as it should, as nature has designed the human body to be, then I think you'll get what you want. So do join the family healing workshop, because that's very, very important. As I said, that's the root. That's the root. If you don't solve the root, you basically work on the symptoms. And work on the symptoms, yes, you can get a lot of result, but it's long, it's hard, and most of the time you won't get. Once you get to the root of the problem, then you can work on your body and your mind. Then the body and the mind starts to regenerate and to recover. So if you put in the time, if you put in the effort, you get what you want. Thank you very, very much for coming, and I hope you will get what you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I hope you all found that interesting. I could listen for hours and hours, and there's plenty more where that came from, and in depth. So we're going to take a break now for half an hour, and then we're going to come back here at 1:45 to start the key energy.